Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well out there and all is good in the golf world for you. It's really my pleasure to introduce a good friend and colleague, Bruce Pulver, author and motivational speaker. His book, I've got it right here in front of me, above the chatter, our words matter. It's amazing what Bruce can do with the power of words, and a lot of times I've used his book when I need specific motivation and specific things for the day, and have been able to use that in my life. So it's a true pleasure to introduce Bruce. And I first met Bruce while he was doing a word shop for the Tennessee PGA in Nashville. And so it's great to have you with us, Bruce. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure indeed, and good morning, everyone. And for you guys to take a little bit of time out of your day, my goal is pretty simple. I'm a real big believer in the power of a single word. And as we go about our day, whether it's with our coworkers, our members, colleagues, professional life, personal life, what I hope we can do is leave with maybe just a nugget of how we approach, how we think, the words we use when we talk about ourselves, the words we use when we share with others, and maybe do a little workshop, maybe have a little interactive part here that allow you to take something that what I call you can activate immediately. So with that, Doug, maybe we can get started. And are you going to advance the slides for me, Doug?
Yes, sir. Just let me know when you're ready to go.
There we go. So our words drive our outcomes. I've been involved with Doug and knowing him, I guess a couple of years now, and I see Adaptive Golf Association. I don't know if that's Dave Windsor or not. I hope so. Maybe a thumbs up if it is. And just certainly love this game, love being around it, and it's really impacted my life. And so I wanted to just kind of tie a little bit of that into, our words drive our outcomes in golf and in life. So Doug, we can slide forward because I want to really talk a little bit about, there we go. Where can our words impact us, right? Where can what we say, how we use our words, how we choose to speak with ourselves and others happen, right? Every area that we work, right? Whether it's retention of staff or attaining or attracting staff, whether it's in how we develop ourselves, how we develop those around us, how we develop our members and those that come into our golf course, and whether it's on a lesson tee or a putting green or the start of a tournament. Teamwork, how do we work with our community of our superintendents, our staff, our greeters, our professionals, our assistants, and across the country? And what about that player member experience? Those are just some ideas that I think about when I think about the power of our words and how we interact with ourselves and with others. So let's move on and talk a little bit on the next slide there. So the thing I really love about the power of words is if you just move the S from the end of words and you move it to the beginning, words are a sword. So let's move a little bit forward here. This will build out a little bit for us. Faith is a really big, important part of my life. And, sharp words cut like a sword, but kind words or words of wisdom can really heal. From a golf perspective, I'll never forget this story. I had the opportunity to play it at Eastlake. A friend called and said, "Hey, Bruce, I've got an opening. Do you want to play?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'll drop anything to go do that." Right. And so we're hitting practice tee, and caddy came up, introduced himself. And I said, I'm so honored to play here. I really haven't played with a caddy before. I will take any bit of advice that you will possibly give me around this golf course as a team. And so we get up to the first tee at Eastlake, and it was actually when they had reversed it. It was 10, right? So it goes up the hill, bends a little bit to the right. And he said to me, "Don't go right." And I stepped away from the tee and I said, "With all due respect, sir, may I ask you to change how you are communicating that with me? And not that I can do it, but would you tell me where you want me to hit the ball?" So he said, "Play it up the left side." So the rest of the day, we just worked on how we had that conversation about guiding, and that was amazing. And then I had the opportunity to speak with Derek Jeter at a conference, and I asked him, "How were you able to perform at such a high level in so many different parts of your career?" and, World Series games, all-star games, needing that double play, last at bat of his career, etc. And this is what he said to us: is the last thing we think is the first thing we do. So it just ties the power, to me, the power of our words and our intentions. And hey, Doug, Brett Gorby just asked me if you could send him the link. He doesn't have it. Brett, he just texted me. Do you have that you could send out to him while we're going?
Who was that?
That was Brett Gorney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway, just framing up the power of our words. And it just jumped at me when I just looked at words and put the S at the beginning, and words are a sword. So we can move forward. Next slide would be great. So today the objectives really, and you'll see that I write words vertically, and I kind of that's just the way they jump out at me. I'd like to share a story. I'd like to give some examples of both how our words are an asset and they align with our actions and mindset. And then recognize and help everyone on this call really understand the power of a single word and give you something to activate and take away. So I hope these are smart objectives, and we'll try to make this your time. So please stop, raise your hand. I'm not that familiar with all of the functions within the Google Meet, but if you've got a comment or question or drop something in chat, love to take those and make this as interactive as we can. So let's go ahead and, as the word guy, let's go ahead and move into the next slide there, Doug. Thank you. Okay, so I'm a word guy, but let's start with the numbers. A study in Psychology Today tells us that, and we'll just build this out, Doug, that'd be great, tells us that we have 25 to 50 thoughts a day that go on in our mind. And that's okay. And about, if I can read that right, 70% of those are negative, or 90%, and 70% are repeated. I don't see the stats there exactly in the slide as it's presenting, but the point there is that we have this tendency, according to some studies, to think in a way of whether it's negativity, avoiding something, not thinking that we're able, or having these self-limiting beliefs. So that's just staggering to me, given the number of hours a day we're up and the number of thoughts per day we have in our heads. So let's move to the next slide, because there's another study here by Mayo Clinic. And this is more the clinical benefits of positive words and thinking. Positive thinking can impact these things, for everything from lifespan to coping skills. Negative thinking, in this study by Mayo, has all these other kinds of impacts on our lives. Not to be toxically positive, but to be thinking about possibilities of outcome rather than limitations of outcome. And then another study, and this was done by the UNC, and I've heard several different versions of this, but we can move to the next slide there, Doug, says that for every one, it takes 3 doses of positivity or reinforcement that's upside to offset 1 negative dose. My real life story here is my youngest daughter, Emily, just completed her soccer career at the University of Georgia. And so that meant that we traveled a lot when she was young around the country. And the kinds of comments that we would hear on the sidelines, whether it's from coaches or parents, were often you're better than that, beat her or beat him, or how can you give up the ball like that? Or why did you miss that shot? And just the pounding of that I saw over many, many years. And the study goes to show this and prove this in UNC, of how important it is to focus on what we can do versus speaking about what we can't do. So Doug, we'll move on to the next slide. So just some numbers there. So where did this all come from? I want to start with a story. We can leave on this slide for a minute. In 1961, my mother gave birth to me. And during that time, during labor, she suffered a major heart trauma caused by labor. I often say I broke her heart on my first day of life, on opening day. What it was called is a dissecting aortic aneurysm. And I want to tell this story because when they C-sectioned me out, there were 2 surgeons who were practicing, just perfecting some heart procedures that had never been done successfully. And they were teaching these at Yale New Haven Medical Center. These 2 surgeons were from Tulane. So we were up in the New Haven area. And these 2 surgeons came over and went to work on my mom immediately. And she dove into a 60-day battle of 3 experimental surgeries that if these surgeons wouldn't have done, she would have died. They dove in and said, we're going to try this. We're going to see what we can do. And she battled and she did not give up. And she survived. She was the longest survivor on record prior to her event. The longest survivor was 72 hours after a dissecting aortic aneurysm during labor. And she lived until I was 22. And we can move on to the next slide. The reason that I share this with you is that she raised us in a life of gratitude, being grateful, being thankful for everything that was in front of us, every opportunity, even any challenge. Here's an article that was written about her in the New England Journal of Medicine and Red Book magazine. And the dog that's there that is with the physician and my mom, and I'm sitting in her lap, is named Archie. And Archie was the dog that these Tulane surgeons were experimenting on with aortic valve replacement.
Oh.
So that was just, just a way that I was raised, but I didn't really understand it. I didn't think anybody else had a life that was different than that. But that was really the mom story. So let's move forward. That was just such an impact on my life. But my dad was a word guy, and that's where the power of words really came into play. But not as a 15-year-old when you don't even want your dad around you or your parents around you because you're so embarrassed by them. But my dad wrote plays, and one of the plays he wrote, these pictures are actually the characters' names in the play he wrote. The sheriff was Law and Order. The nursery person was Teresa Green. The author, the mystery novelist, was Paige Turner and Cliff Hanger. Right, you get it. The weatherman was Gust of Wind. The person that always had to have a plan B was Just in Case, and the nurse was Ophelia Pulse. So I got it honestly. My mom's gratitude. We move to the next slide, and my dad's love of words. And in my life, I had this positive energy of my mom and this thing about my dad, and I never really realized it until we move to the next slide. Doug, I want to share this with you. One of my favorite quotes is Mark Twain's, and I really believe that this kind of helped me for sure about meaning of life. The day I was born, I just explained, and the day I find out why I was born was probably the second most important day in my life. And that's when these words really started becoming impactful to me. We can move to the next slide because I called it, next slide we can go, the story of a broken spirit, but a BAM moment. So I think hopefully we can all relate here in some way. In our lives, we all are going through something, and we're all going through something that nobody knows about. And at some point in time in everyone's life, there's this moment. It's when everything's going a certain way, and then bam, something happens, and that changes. It might change for the awesome. It might change for the great. It might change for a setback. It might change for a just change in direction. And for me, it was after 35 years of being in the healthcare industry, kind of following mom's, everything's going to work out for the best, and dad's, mindset of power of our words. I lost a job. It was a layoff of 500 of my coworkers and myself. And that led to how important mom's gratitude and dad's love of words came into play in my life. And we can go to the next slide. I woke up the morning after that layoff. Pounding in my head was the word to be strong. And I just wrote it vertically. Wrote it on a piece of paper. Woke up in the morning. It was like divinely downloaded to me that I needed to stand tall, remain optimistic, and now go for it. So I tried to find something that day to be strong about. The next day I woke up, today will be awesome. What does that mean? A wonderful experience shall overwhelm my expectations. I looked for something that day that could be awesome in probably a quagmire of mental messiness, emotional messiness, like what's my next step messiness. But we looked for something that was awesome. And I think what it was I think I hit 5 green lights in a row while I was driving down Peachtree with a couple of left-hand turns. So it was just something that I was searching for. And then I started saying, okay, well, what can I do? So the next morning I woke up, and quite honestly, again, yes, I can, is you expect success in challenging activities now. So just a way that I started seeing how impactful my words were for myself. And then I started sharing these out with friends. So what do I mean next by the M of manifesting that words are an asset? So let's move to the next slide here, Doug. That would be great. So we can say all these things, right? Memorable, inspirational, declarative, and motivational or inspirational. We all know these. These are things that just stick in our mind, right? It was Kennedy, right? Ask not what your country can do for you. It was when the going gets tough. You can write something in the chat here. The tough get what? The tough get going. One chat somebody wrote, the tough go shopping. So anyway, whatever your inspiration is when the going get tough, the lunar experience, right? One small step for man, and Nike's whole business model. So they're an asset. We can use these words in a lot of different ways. They can also be on the other side of the balance sheet. So they are an asset. So let's move forward to the next perspective here. The asset of perspective. Let's just arrow down once here if we can here, and just stay here for a second. So let's look at this picture, right? We got Bob, right? Bob's on an island. He's been there for a long time, it looks like, right? His jeans are kind of ripped, and he's standing in front of the palm tree and hasn't shaved for a while and looks maybe like he needs a meal. And he sees an horizon, somebody rowing towards him, and he yells, "Boat, boat," right? What's he thinking? Finally, I'm going to get off this island. We're going to get somewhere else. However, the words of the perspective, if we arrow down one time, Doug, the guy in the boat, how long has he been on this boat? He's right, his hands raised because he's saying land, land. So what we say and how we say it, words have real perspective. From my perspective, another story here is my wife is a chef, and she does a lot of private meals for families that just want to have one home cooked meal a week, right? We're running around doing everything: golf lessons, music lessons, soccer, lacrosse, band, whatever. And folks are eating in their car, and she came up with this idea called meaningful meals. And I help her prepare for them. And so one day we were cooking, and she asked me, she said, "Bruce, go get the Baileys." So I'm thinking, Baileys? Okay. So I go over to the cabinet where we store the Baileys, the liquor cabinet, and I come out with it in my hand. And she goes, "What are you doing?" She said, I go, and she directed me back to the spice cabinet because she wanted bay leaves, not Baileys. What she said and what I heard were two totally different things. So I think from a perspective aspect of a power of our words, that is how our words are received by others are almost as important, sometimes more important, than how we articulate what we mean to say. So just an example of perspective there that I've learned through this process of the power of our words as well. Okay, so Doug, so let's move on. So we can take this word "if only." It's going to be a busy slide, but I think this also give us some perspective. If only, or one day, if only I had more time, or one day I'll get to it. We just move those opposite. Say only if and day one. Let's build these out real quick, Doug. If I look at if only, these are some things that could jump into my mindset. I wait and wish, I'm fearful and unsure. I mean, you can read these, right? Okay, whose fault is it? I say, if only. Not sure that's, or we can say only if. I own the action. Nothing moves till I do. Look for and take a step. Yes, I can, and I believe. It's up to me to move. And for me, it's faith and trust is a must. So just by moving, if only to only if, can change everything. Same thing with one day. One day I'll get to this. Or as my dad used to say, around to it. And he used to give me a circular piece of wood with the number 2 and the word IT on it. I said, "Dad, I'll do it when I get around to it." He'd pull out of his pocket and said, "Here's around to it. Now get after it." One day. Or we can look at it and say that today is day one. So this is how I get started. How can I move on something that's been a goal, that's an objective, that I might have been saying one day I'll get to it? Let's look at that and just flip that around in our mind, in our mindset, and start thinking about today being day one versus one day. Just some ways that we can look at words and how we can apply those and activate them in the asset of perspective. Okay, let's move on. Okay. So there's really 3 ways that I kind of see looking at change, right? That there's that sort of reluctant to change. So what would that mean? Arrow down for me there, Doug, and we'll look at this. I could say I can't handle another negative, gut-wrenching experiences. No more. I mean, that's me, right? That's all of us kind of by nature. We kind of like the way things flow. But if we look at change maybe as an opportunity and we're willing to make that change, like I kind of had to do and learn through this with the job layoff or any kind of bam moment to work through it, the circumstances are new. Now I need to get engaged. Just looking at the same way. Well, what if go from willing to eager to change? Again, a mindset switch. The change is still there. But what if I look at it and say, you know what? It's going to be a challenge. But what if I start this change by looking for ways to help others and take action? Now, I'd love for you guys to write this word down. You just got a pad or even on your phone right now. We'll have a little interactive section here. Write down the word action. After it, write the word, or the symbol, the math symbol equals. Okay? Then take the fourth letter of the word action and write that letter down. Now write a plus sign. Now write the first three letters of the word action. Another plus sign. And the last two letters of action. So Doug, what does that equation say? Action equals?
Act on it.
I plus act plus on. Yeah. Anyway, navigate. Man, if we're eager, we're going to find a way and kind of get after it and approach things in an energized way. This is not easy. This is not flip a light switch. And I like to stay at this time of the talk that I'm a mouse in my own laboratory. I have to go through these presentations, even when I don't have a group that I'm speaking with, because I have to remember and apply these because life throws us so many things every day. But hopefully when we're looking at change, maybe there's 3 different ways now that we can step away after today and say, you know, there's a couple ways to look at change. Instead of maybe always looking at it a certain way, maybe I can dive in and maybe add a little bit of energy to it. So we can move through change. Another word as we move forward here that I really love is the word commit. So, and Dave Windsor and I have talked about this before. Like, so Dave and I will say, okay, Bruce, we're gonna eat better. We're gonna dive into our nutrition. And I raise my hand and I say, count on me making it there with you, Dave. And then we high five each other and go get a cheeseburger and fries, actually double fries. So we're saying what we're going to do, which is a really, really good start. But what's I think the why is on the schedule here, on the slide here. Why do I want to make that change? That's where we can really get to that commitment. Well, if I commit to something and my behavior changes, what kind of example or ripple can that create around me of others that I want to see change? So in a leadership position, adapt a new skill, stretch ourselves out, be an example by doing it. Why? Oh, the ripple to inspire. Right? There's more to lose if I don't take action. That could be my why. It could be a health situation. I personally want to be around for the opportunity if for successes that my children have. Well, I have more to lose if I don't take care of my health, getting back to that piece as, if I don't, right? I get more to gain by taking actions, and then I can see value. And the why is the urgency is real. That's great. But how? How do I go about? So the what and the why are important, but what are some activating steps that we can do? So Doug, can you slide to that center, to that how? We can go through that aspect of another way to look at commit. Oh, maybe back up one real quick if we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's something wrong.
Okay,
there.
No worries. How is not getting there, but I will say this. How is come with possibility thinking. That's the C. The O is own how we use our time. To me, the M, God, this is a tough one. This is really hard, especially if we've got other responsibilities. The first M in the how to commit is make and keep promises to ourselves. I shared that my daughter played soccer and my other daughter played volleyball. I would never miss picking them up or making sure they had a ride home from practice and to practice. But I might say, oh, I'll get to that. I want to run, or I want to walk for 30 minutes today. Oh, I'll get to that later. That's denying myself the promise I made to myself. So come with possibility thinking, own how we use our time, make and keep promises to ourselves is the how of the commit. The M is making service part of the effort. What I talk about there is if, I'm working and trying to train for a 5K or something, why not take an empty trash bag with me? And along the way, maybe while I'm walking to begin with, pick up something that I see on the ground. I'm making service part of the process. The I in commit and how is, invest in actions that lead me to the outcome. And then the T is then with my realize, I will realize the outcome. So the how step is really tactical, but the why is kind of the purpose. Okay, let's go to the next slide, because this one is where words really have an impact. If I were to ask you, and you can throw something in the chat or even come off mute if you want, if I said, wow, I really feel bound, what kind of word comes to mind that associates with feeling bound? Restricted, held back, tightened down. But what if I changed that and said I'm bound and determined? Same word, used differently. Buckle, I buckle over. Everything I try, everything I'm attempting, I just seem to be cut off at the knees and I buckle over. Or what if I'm able to say I'm going to buckle down? Just get a little bit more effort. What if I look at hold up? Oh man, everybody's holding me up. I got a deal that I'm trying to get done in a sales process, and accounting won't approve the payment terms, or legal won't approve some of the wording changes we want for some of the business logic. Being held up. Or what if someone is supporting me? Thank you. You really held me up and lifted me. Same words, right? Left, you're gone. Or left, you're the only one that stayed. You remain versus fleeting. And then one of my favorites is stuck. I just feel about like the concrete boots, right? You got boots on, you're stuck in this slab of concrete. You just can't move. The other version of that is stuck with it. So I did this exercise at Lipscomb College for an MBA class, and I gave them two different business case studies. One was the negative case study and the other was the positive. And they had to come in and talk to their senior leadership about why they were not going to make the number for the quarter. And they could only use these 5 words. And they broke it down that way. The negative folks had to say, just the way we broke it down, I'm stuck, I'm bound, I'm restricted. Everything I try, I fall over. I can't get things done. I'm being held up, feel like I'm left alone, and we're stuck. There's nothing we can do. The other group didn't know that the other group in the room had the positive approach, and they came in and totally had the conversation different. Our actions will align with our mindset, how we decide to use our words. All right, let's move forward to another slide here real quick. Okay, so are we paying attention to our words? This gets back to the caddy thing. Let's hit both of these right now. Untie the knot. Can't. Or my dad used to say, or play a game called kick the can. I just added apostrophe T to it, kick the can't. So what does that mean? Next slide, or the next build of this slide, is going to show us some examples of words that if we can work into our vocabulary, even if it's for 30 minutes on one day, to eliminate words that end in N apostrophe T when we're talking to ourselves and talking to others, whether it's on the practice tee, whether it's on the practice green, whether it's working through a tournament event. What can we do versus we aren't, can't, couldn't, didn't, shouldn't, etc. Just the thought process. This really works well with juniors. It really works well. I had the opportunity to caddy, and Dave knows this, at the Georgia State Adaptive Open for my dear friend Jonathan Snyder. And this didn't cause the outcome, but it sort of got our mind in the right place. He was at a par 3. We shot the number. He said, what do you think between a pitch and wedge and a 9-iron? He goes, I'm really thinking pitch and wedge. I just said, be confident. And that ball landed about 40 feet from the pin and rolled right in the hole. My words didn't cause him to shoot a hole in one, but he was confident of what he could do. He wasn't saying, well, I'm not sure if I should hit the wedge. We just said, be confident. So my thinking here is if we can have a 1 or 2 sentences, a paragraph where we eliminate NOT or N apostrophe T, it'll make a massive impact over time. Okay, let's slide on down. We'll keep moving here. I want to keep us on track and want to get to our little exercise here. Okay, so here's a little exercise that I'd like to engage everyone with. Thanks for indulging me and giving you kind of this background of how impactful and powerful words have been for me in my life. But I'd like to encourage you guys to step out of this circle, the small circle of comfort zone, and step in with an activity action here with me. So let's arrow down. And if you guys want to participate in this, this would be awesome. So here's what I do in my extended workshops, and we'll do a quick one here. I truly believe that everyone in life has a word or a phrase that's their go-to. It's the mindset, it's the statement, you got this, or this is, and I would play tennis. I had a guy that played next to me. He goes, this is my house. You know, when he was returning serve, this is my house. I got this ball. I got this box. You know, it might be traction. It might be growth. It might be faith. It might be peace. It might be calm. But I'm going to argue that everyone probably has their own word or phrase. And if you'd be willing to step into this uncomfort zone and write your word and write it vertically, we'll walk through a little step and exercise. And then, Doug, maybe we unmute and let some folks kind of participate here. But think of your word. Take a minute. Write that word vertically. Then you think about, what does that word mean to you if you had to describe that word using just the letters in the word, either as a specific word or a phrase? Kind of like we did with commit, kind of like we did with change. Sometimes when we're live, we'll play the Jeopardy music for 3 or 4 minutes, but whoever would like to try this, I'd encourage you to do it. And Doug, we'll just take a couple of minutes if that's okay. I'm gonna check the chat here to see if there's any comments or things that I can see here. Let's see.
Megan has said your, or she got Y. You can unmute and talk if you'd like, everybody.
Yet. Yeah, Megan, talk to me about yet.
We do a lot of yet with my coworkers, and so, like, you know, when somebody's saying I can't do that, it's like yet. We haven't figured out how to do it yet. But so your excitement travels. It won't let you hit enter and circle down. So sorry, that's why the your was up there. But thanks.
That is great. You know, the other, so Megan, I'll add to that a little bit. Verse, you know, I try or I need to, just replacing that with I am. I love that. So it activates the process, right? It activates the, I'm going to get there. I may not have all the skill set yet, but that's not going to stop. That will keep me moving, as you said, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Anyone else want to jump in and share their word? I'll ask, if you do, just say yes, and I'll ask you a couple of questions about it. Well, if you do want to share your word, I'm going to ask you, what is your word? What makes it important to you? Like, is there a reason, a little mini story behind it? And then share it with us. I'll go with one of mine. It's one of my favorite words because I truly believe this with every human being, every person I meet. I believe we all have gifts, GIFTS. And it's our responsibility to dive in and figure out what those are. Sometimes it's a challenge. Sometimes we don't know what are they or how can I use these, right? And to me, gifts really simply is God installed features to share. I grew up playing music. I grew up playing sports, and I didn't really realize the impact that had. And I also always thought of myself as being limited. But now what I realize, with many of the musicians that I know who have gone on to do wonderful things in music, they developed their talent, and they own that. So that's what I love about gifts. They're given to us. We have to develop them. And then I think the real benefit of them is to share them. So one of my favorite words is gifts. So if anybody has one else that they'd like to jump in and share, I'd love to hear it.
Brett said he would share. Go ahead, Brett. Unmute and.
Yeah, what you got, Brett? Hello there.
Hey guys, what's happening? So one that we use with Servanty is our motto is live a life well played. But I use that as well. I've been trying to use that more with saying, somebody asks how I'm doing, and I'll say I'm well. But for us, that well is an acronym for walking with God, encouraging others, loving others, and living out with intention and purpose.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm well. So I'm doing this part-time thing where I'm doing some work over at Home Depot, and part of that process is greeting folks, right? And I've just started falling into this practice, which is now a habit. Hopefully it'll become a lifestyle as I keep doing it. How's your Wednesday? Oh, my Wednesday's going well. Tell me something great about it, so that they actually activate that feeling, and then you have a conversation. So I love that. I love well, and I love yet. I think we probably have time for a couple more, Doug, if anyone else wants to come off mute and share their word. If not,
Bruce, if you don't mind, I'm going to share one from your book that I use daily, especially in my role as a career consultant for, the Georgia section and taking care of everybody. And that is the word care. And I, use that from your book is, C is always make sure I connect on a personal level. The A is align with their situation, what's going on with them. Respect the perspective that they have from what they do, how they do it, and what's going on in their life. And then empathize with them and not think to right away fix their, whatever it might be, but empathize and then work on the situation together.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm honored that you grab that and use it. So, I believe in the ripple too. The yet, Megan, if somebody hears you say yet in a conversation and have never been exposed to that ripple, they might just latch onto that and say, you know what? That's a way for me to kind of step into something I've never thought about before, but I can try something before I know exactly how to do it. And you'll never know how far that ripple reaches, because it'll be somebody, a practice tee, somebody, maybe it's in the food and beverage area that you just said something like that. Next thing you know, it becomes something that's part of them. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. That's great. Another couple things. I don't even have these in slides, but a couple words that just kind of jump out at me. Two words, not and able, right? N-O-T space A-B-L-E. If you eliminate the space, that word becomes notable. You may be working with someone and they feel like they're nowhere, N-O space W-H-E-R-E. Just move the W closer to the O. Now here.
Yeah.
So I think that is a spark that, like you said, folks want to be seen, Doug, and be heard. And that's really sometimes all that it takes is that pause, because the word listen and the word silent have the same letters. You just rearrange them. So that's another thing that I try to employ when I see there's a possible opportunity for a conversation, to just try to be silent. So yeah. Anyway, so a couple things here. Thanks for sharing your words, number one. Number two, keep at this. There's no wrong answers. You can take your own word, think about it. And then I would also say this, and this is something that I've really started trying to encourage and do myself as well. If there's someone you're working with, someone in your life, right? Someone you have a personal relationship or professional relationship, or maybe a customer, maybe a member, maybe someone where there might be, I don't know, a tad bit of maybe some friction, maybe some air that needs to be cleared, or maybe you just want to share with someone how much they mean to you. Take their name and write it vertically, and you build out what that person means to you in a positive and use that as kind of an icebreaker, because the best sound in life to anyone is the sound of their name. We've heard that repeated many, many times. I believe if we take another step, and I'm gonna just do this off the fly. Doug, you and you've been such a great supporter of mine and an encourager of mine. So how would I describe Doug? Just does nothing but encourage. Optimistic when I talk with him. Unconditionally caring, and great guy. That's Doug. When I think of Doug, that's what I think of. Just another way of using the power of our words is in, the proper name of someone. So we got a couple more slides maybe to close this out, and then we can open up I want to respect your time, but love to make this as interactive as we can. So let's finish 2024 strong. And these are 5 things that I'd encourage and challenge everyone on the call to do, is just pay attention to those thoughts and words in every situation that you can. Replace a negative with a positive. Here's what I can do, or let's look at it this way, or have you thought about? Just different phrases to introduce as you're working through something that might be a challenge. When you write your word, keep it with you. Use it and share it. Make it part of kind of your mantra. And of course, you got to measure it, right? If you want the impact. So track your actions. And I'd love to hear back through, we're doing the mindset caddy. I love that, the opportunity to just kind of write that out. And maybe we can, Doug, get some feedback on, how have our words impacted us? Are there some things that may have, my dad used to say to me, Bruce, you're making a mountain out of a molehill on something that's little. And I've thought about that recently and changed that up a bit. And I think if we move enough molehills, it ultimately turns in to moving a mountain. So think about this as simply incremental. And the thing I love about that word is the word mental's at the end of it. That's just little thoughts drive little actions that change our outcomes. All right, Doug, I think we're probably at maybe the last slide here. Yeah, I would love to stay connected with you guys. You can scan this QR code. It's my LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to reach me. If this meant anything to you, just share out the power of your words with other folks. And if you've got any events that I can serve you, whether it's a member event or any of your organizations, I'd be delighted to follow up one-on-one and see where I might be able to serve you guys. So with that, Doug, I'd love to turn it back over to you, the power of our words, and open it up for conversation or wrap. So we can unmute and chat about it, and I'd love to hear your feedback.
Yes, thanks, Bruce. Excellent, as always. Great to have you with us, but I wanted to open it up, see if anybody had any questions or comments for Bruce or even myself.
Hey, this is Dave Windsor. Did I get off of the mute button okay?
Hey, Dave. Yeah, we hear you great.
Hey, everybody. Yes. Yeah, sorry, it was a long night. I was away for a couple of days. Had to wait for that second cup of coffee to kick in. But yeah, did you share with everybody how they could even get your book, copy of your book? It's a book I like to carry with me on some flights, and it's so encouraging. I've seen it in action when Bruce comes and helps us inside the Shepherd Center. You have folks in there that just had most recent life-changing circumstances, and he'll just find, whatever that moment presents to speak of something there, and you just witness things turn right around. So, I mean, it's just such a strong, everything that he brings. So I encourage everybody to check out. Yeah, there you go, Doug. Thank you. So I wanted to just say thanks, Bruce. Appreciate everything. And it's just such an important linkage to enhancing the lives that we do through the game.
Thank you, Dave. And, you and Jonathan and Doug and others, kind of have very much brought me closer to this game that I love. And I want to thank you for that so much, the opportunity to be a vessel. If you are interested in the book, for you or your teams, it's available on Amazon, but also available on my website, which is the name of the book, Above the Chatter, ourwordsmatter.com. I sign every copy that's purchased there. So if you have some that you'd like to give to your teams, etc., we'll have a dialogue back and forth, and you can tell me something about Johnny or something about Sally, and I try to make something that's pertinent to what you'd like them a way that we can help pour into them through just a message I write in the book. So thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Above the chatter, ourwordsmatter.com.
Okay, I'll chime back in. This is Brett. Yeah, Bruce, thanks. Doug, thanks for putting this together. Always great. I know many of you guys are working at country clubs and have bigger teams than I do with my business or my nonprofit, but man, the power of words, and we're seeing a lot of negative in current days with election stuff going on, and it's unfortunate. And so I think now more than ever, we can be better beacons of light for those we get to serve. You just never know who's listening. And if we can set those examples, especially for younger men and women that are working for us, it's so powerful. The old adage of sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me is so false, and we've all experienced that. But yeah, I just thank you, Bruce. Look forward to seeing you next Friday too. And appreciate all you do, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. And then Brett's invited me to join the Servantee golf tournament. So I'll be out there for that next week. And thank you for that invite. I certainly am looking forward to it so much. We're putting together, actually, one of the things we're doing for a silent auction, if I can do this, Brett, is we are, let me see if I can even, yeah, here we go. We are doing what's called a motivational bookshelf. And these are books from authors that are my friends who have contributed a book to the motivational bookshelf. I know silent auctions typically have, a lot of other different things, but we're going to try to build a mindset change by having a library started for the highest bidder. And we're looking forward to making a good contribution to Servantee.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I've been able to add, I've probably got about 6 or 7 of my own. So it'll be a really cool thing. I've never seen anything like that. So for any of you guys hosting outings or things, it's a unique idea. You'd be surprised at how many friends you have that are authors that are willing to, sign an encouraging note. And, you just never know who that one person at an event that might think that's a really valuable investment. So thanks for that, Bruce.
Absolutely.
And just so everybody knows, I've dropped in the chat the link to Bruce's book on Amazon if you want to go there and click that. And if you have interest in that, I definitely recommend it. It sits right here on my desk when I need, and it's, by chapter, various things you might need in your day or your week, and you can go to that chapter and find words that can help you and motivate you.
Thank you again, Bruce, for your time. And that's been, I hope someone has taken out some nugget of information. And Jimmy here says it best, acronyms are powerful as well. So we can all use those in our everyday life. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for having me so much. And the book wasn't intended to be a book. It was a journal. I'll tell one closing story, if I may. A dear friend of mine's a pediatric heart surgeon at the University of Florida. One of probably 100 people on the planet that do what he does. And he operates on the hearts of babies that are 7 days old and the size of walnuts. So we've had a lot of conversations about my mom's situation, which I explained at the beginning of the talk. And I started sharing these out as I started daily, just being divinely inspired to write another word. And he called me one night, and his name is Dr. Jeff Jacobs. And Jeff said, I needed that word today, Bruce. And remember, this was just a journal. This was just me sending things out to friends. And I said, tell me the story. He said, we had a baby's heart we were operating on. She was 7 days old. There were 6 of us in the scrub, the OR prep. And, all these folks were academically, brilliant. They were scientists and medical professionals, surgeons. And he said there were 10 things that could have been needed when we opened up the heart. They have all the imaging, they have everything, but he said every time we go in to look at a heart, it's always different in some sort of way. And he said there were 10 combinations that would be possible solutions for each of those 10 things that we could have seen. And he said we were kind of not anxious, but we were feeling the heat. And he said my phone went off, and I pulled out my phone, and it was a text from you, and I opened it, and the word you sent me last night, Bruce, was the word calm. Catch a little moment. He said we stepped back, we kind of gathered ourselves, and we went in and performed the 9-hour surgery. Please don't take that as a story about Bruce. It was just a story of 2 things: the power of our words and the ripple effect. And when he told me that, it was no longer a 3-ring binder, and we had to figure out a way to do something more with this. And, you know, God has given me the gift and the pathway to continue to explore this gift and spread it. So thank you for your time to do that. And I hope the word you choose, you can share, and it has an impact going forward. So thank you so guys very much for the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Really appreciate you and appreciate the message and your time today. So thank you so much, friend. Everybody have a wonderful day and a great rest of your week. And please reach out if there's anything that I can do for you as well as Bruce. And have a blessed day, everyone.